Hey everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day, whoop whoop. Hope that you've had a fantabulous Christmas and a fantabulous New Year's. I've missed you dearly. I appreciate you stopping by. So what are we doing today? Well, let me tell you, I'm going to prep some fabric. And I went back and forth with this idea, and I'll explain here in just a second. So prepping fabric I did, about a year ago. And I taught a method that I was using. I used it for a couple of years. And I'm now going back to my old system. I actually prefer it better. And I debated on whether or not I was going to take down that other video, but I'm not. And I'll tell you why. First of all, there's a couple of snippets in there that are actually really good information if you're new or new to starching, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to starch today. So I decided to leave it up, but I decided also to redo this because I went back to my old method. All right. So as I said in the previous video, if you've watched it before, there are a zillion methods out there, and it just really depends on what works for you, right? So I went back to my old way, and I just can't get away from it. I did this years ago. I went back to it, and I want to share it with you because this may work better. Okay. So that's the first and foremost. Now, the second thing a lot of people ask, do you pre-wash your fabric? No, I do not. I do not pre-wash, but there are people that do, and it works great for them. And they have a lot of really good techniques. Now, I will tell you, if you're interested in pre-washing and getting the best method, check out those YouTube videos out there. There's a lot of information, but I will tell you one of the reasons that people pre-wash is for shrinkage, to pre-shrink all that fabric, because this is 100% cotton and it will shrink. But I will also tell you, when you starch, you're also going to shrink. Okay. So I'm already getting a little bit of shrinkage. This is why I usually do not starch anything from fat quarter or below, any pre-cuts. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't do any pre-cuts. So fat quarters, 10-inch squares, 5-inch squares, jelly rolls, I don't starch them. I want the full amount, and that's my preference. Now, I will also say, if you are a starcher or new to starching, you don't want to do it after you cut. If you cut a 2.5-inch square and you starch it, then it will shrink. So then you won't have a 2.5-inch square. So it's real important that if you're going to prep your fabric like this, that you do it before you cut. Now, why do I starch? I really enjoy the way that starch gives a really stiff, stable ness to my fabric. And it really helps increase your accuracy when you're cutting. You know, you get all of your fabrics and they have all the wrinkles. They come up folded up. They come up in various different ways, and you get folds, you get creases, you get wrinkles. Yeah, it's a hot mess. If we don't at least press it, you're going to not be as accurate. But by starching and giving that fabric a real stability, you're going to help make that cutting a lot more enjoyable and a lot more accurate. Okay. So I always starch my fabric. Now, I'm going to show you the method here, and I'm going to leave the other video up because I bring you in close. This one I'm going to stay right here. I will tell you that I generally do it the day before, and I'll explain in a little bit why that is. But I ain't gonna lie, y'all, sometimes I do it hours before. Not the best technique. So I'm actually going to starch a couple of pieces of fabric and let it sit, and we'll come back. So let's go ahead and get this started. So the first thing is, I personally use Faultless Heavy Finish, It does have, my husband says it smells like laundry. I think it smells good. I like it. So I'm okay with it. But if you are new to starching, there are several Faultless does make an odorless. And there are other types of starch out there. Now, one of the things about starching that people worry about is they say it flakes. I've never had it flake ever. What I have found is with some other brands, it doesn't seem to be as stiff and it doesn't work as well. And it does have a real impact on my accuracy. So I found love with the heavy finish Faultless blue cap. That's just me. So I got a new can here because I didn't want to run out. Let me move this all out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our fabric. Now I am doing a fat quarter. What? Yeah. That makes it easy for me to show when I hold it up exactly what's going on because it fits in the camera. But I'm also going to do a little bit of a bigger piece of fabric because it's not any different, it's just a different size. And I know that some people will ask questions and I just want to try to think ahead for you. Okay, so I give it a good shake. Now, the key to this is first and foremost, put your fabric right, well, this is my method, right? Okay, I put my fabric right side up. Now, if you're new to quilting, the right side is the pretty side, the wrong side is the not so pretty side. I guess it's very hard for you to tell in the camera, but this side is the wrong side, this side is the pretty side or the right side. So I put it right side up. I take my can, I give it a good shake, and I'm going to really get it saturated a little bit. Okay, now I'm not the type that sprays where it's like dripping, no, but it is saturated. This is wet, and I really do take my hands and I massage it in. Now I try not to pull the fabric too much because you will distort it. What you're trying to do here is not have splotches. Now this is where I was telling you guys, if I'm doing it right, I do it 24 hours ahead. Okay? When I'm in a hurry, I don't do it 24 hours ahead. And what I find is I have splotches. Like I'll get real thick in one area or nothing in one area, and it'll just like be pockets of areas. I'm trying to avoid that. Okay? So you want to get it wet, and most fabric, you know, when it gets wet, it changes color, so you can kind of tell. Sometimes it's hard, I agree, but you want to do the whole thing. Make sure it's nice and wet, but I don't do dripping, okay? It's not dripping, especially since I'm massaging it in. I'm putting it into the fabric. Now, some of you might ask, why don't I pre-wash? Because for me, it really makes the fabric really soft, and it changes how the fabric comes to you to begin with. It actually feels different, and to me, it really does change my accuracy. So, and then it's also an extra step. Now, if I was worried about something bleeding, what I will do is throw a color catcher in when I go to wash my quilt. All right, so I've done one side. It looks pretty good. I do have an edge here. It's hard to get. Now, I will also tell you, some people put something underneath the fabric to protect their ironing board. Yeah, mine's a hot mess. I just wash the pad eventually, but it does turn into a hot mess because it does get scorched with all the heat, and you can tell where it's been wet and different things like that once you get it done. But it's wet, guys. It's really wet. Now, I can tell by looking at the back side, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I feel like there are some splotches, okay? I can see them. So I'm just gonna hit a couple of spots more, and I can actually see them a little bit on the front. Now, this is why I do it 24 hours in advance, because I gotta let it dry. If I'm in a hurry, it has to be hours in advance, because this will take hours to dry, okay? It plain and simple will. So what I'll do is I will let this sit on the ironing board overnight, and I'll just let it dry, plain and simple. Now, some of you might be asking, and I'm just going to put this aside for right now. And yes, y'all are seeing the other side of my sewing studio. Notice I said I don't have curtains. I'm using a quilt. And today's kind of cloudy, so it wouldn't have mattered. But when I talk about hiding some of that, that's, and I put up a quilt last couple weeks ago. I said I used a quilt. That's the quilt. So this one's a little larger. And I just actually do the same thing. I put it, and you can tell really easily which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side. This actually, just so y'all know, this is an older fabric. It's QT Fabrics by Dan Morris Design. It's got eagles on it. It's blue. Yes, it's very, very pretty. The fat quarter that I'm doing is from Robert Kaufman. And I forget the line, and that selvage doesn't tell me. Something to do with dots and stripes. I used it in the bowl cozies. So I just basically do the same thing, and I lay it all out, okay? Take my can, and I try to get it nice and wet, but not dripping. But it is wet, guys. I mean, this is a wet piece of fabric. All right. All right. Then again, I will, oh yeah, I got to put more on it. I will smooth it in. I will put my hands on it, and I will get them wet with it. And I will definitely get this nice and even and saturated into the fabric. Again, right side up. Okay. Now, I'll do this whole thing. I won't do it with you on camera, but I will go ahead and do this whole thing. And what will happen is I will lay it. It will be laid out, nothing touching the floor. If it's really long, because I've done like 3-4 yards, and it's, listen guys, I get chairs, I put tables, I put chairs out, and I put it over the chairs. Try to keep it up off the floor, but I'm not worried about the bending, okay? Because, you know, like over here, it might, when it dries, it'll have like a little bend. I don't worry so much about that because it all irons out, plain and simple. So I'll get this off camera done, and I will let this dry. It will be a few minutes for you, but I am not going to sit here and wait for this to dry, because it does take hours, okay? And I will actually take this piece that is really saturated, and I'll lay it over something, probably a table, and let it dry. I will not let it dry on top of another piece of fabric. That is a situation for a mess. The fabric, number one, won't dry correctly, and number two, it keeps this bottom, it keeps it wet in between, and then I worry about some other things going on that I don't want to happen. So I will lay this across a table or something, and or a chair, and allow it to dry. You could even put it in your bathtub or whatnot. I don't go that far. I just lay mine out somewhere where I know it's going to have an opportunity to dry, and then I will let this dry on the ironing board. And tomorrow I will see you guys again when this is all dry, and I'll come back at you for the next step. See you guys in just a second. All right, here we are 24 hours later-ish, you know, next day. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's definitely got, it's not as soft, and it's got some stability to it, ready to be pressed and ready to be cut. The same thing with this one. Now, I think I took pictures of how I hung these, so I'll throw it here if in fact I did. And I'm going to remove this. I mean, this is awesome, guys. This makes me excited to cut, and y'all know I do not like cutting. Okay, so when I go to press these, I'm going to press them from the wrong side, okay? What that does is it actually puts the heat on the top here and pulls the, what do we call, the starch through the fibers, right? Because I sprayed from the right side, so I'm going to press from the wrong side. Now, if this wasn't, oh, before I go on, this iron, is warm, is set at cotton setting. I do whatever material that I'm working with. I make sure that I have the iron set at the right temperature. Too hot will scorch it. Too low won't get you anywhere, right? And again, I'm pressing from the back side, the wrong side, okay? And you're supposed to press, supposedly, right? So you don't stretch your fabrics. I can't help it. I'm a wiggler. I'm an ironer. And I'm just trying to, you know, go at an even pace and get it ironed. And let me tell you guys, this is absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous. Looky there. No wrinkles, no creases, no folds. Ready to be cut. Okay. So I'll put that back there, and I will do the exact same thing with the yardage. Nothing's different. It's just larger, right? Now you might be asking, if I go ahead and use this and I have anything left over, let's say it's been in my stash for a couple of years, will I starch it again? No. I just starch it once, give it a press. It works out great. And yeah, this is my method. Remember, there are a billion jillion methods out there, just like everything else in quilting. It doesn't make one right or wrong. It just makes what works for you. I hope this was helpful for you. It is a little different than the first video. The other method works too. I just prefer this one. I really do. I feel like I get better results out of it. So I'm going to keep on working on this, guys. I appreciate y'all stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, I'd love to hear how if you're a starcher. And notice I do use a dry iron. That's probably another question I'm going to get. I do not ever use steam. I try to keep, I won't say never, because there are certain methods for you know, different stabilizers, interfaces that I may in fact use steam, but very rarely will I ever use steam. I try to keep my iron water free so it never has a problem with leakage, right? Because that's always fun. But yes, I'd love to hear if you're a starcher. If you're not a starcher, I hope you will give this a shot and see if it's something you like. It will give me beautiful accurate lines when I go to cut. It just adds a lot of stability. And I'll tell you, one of the best times to use it is when your squares are, or your subcuts are really, really small. It's always nice to have starch fabric, the smaller the pieces that they are. But yeah, this is really exciting, guys. Very exciting. So if you are a starcher, let us know. If you're new to starching or don't starch, I encourage you to give one of those many different, if not this method, a shot. This is my favorite. And let me know what you think. But any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in down below there in the comments. I'll be sure to get back to you. We will be live on Facebook at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, as I'm here in Virginia. So I hope to see you there. It's our live Quilting and Answers, live Q&A session. Always there to have a good time. But yes, that is it, guys. This is it. A very short video. I think I covered everything. Let me know if I didn't. I hope to see you at 3 p.m. But until next week, may you all continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful. Never stop believing and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. See y'all soon. Happy quilting.